Welcome back to the deep dive. Today, we're taking on a story that is just deeply unsettling. It's about political dissent, shocking impunity, and one of the most meticulously planned, state-sponsored assassinations in recent memory.
We're talking about the murder of Saudi journalist Jamal Khashoggi.
Exactly. And for this deep dive, we really have to act almost like forensic investigators.
We do. Our sources are all over the map in a good way.
Yeah.
We're looking at everything from official U.S. State Department statements and, Saudi propaganda releases, all the way to these incredibly detailed intelligence leaks from Turkey.
And the goal here is to connect all the dots. We want to trace Khashoggi's life in exile, which was becoming more and more dangerous.
Right. And then understand the precise, almost cinematic machinery that was used to lure him to that consulate in Istanbul.
And then, of course, track the global fallout, the cover-up attempts, all of it. Our mission isn't just to list the facts, but to really understand the pressure points, the political calculations.
To follow the thread from a planning room in Riyadh all the way to the UN and to this lingering, heartbreaking mystery of the unfound body.
And we have to start with the core, brutal truth that all the investigations later confirmed.
This was not a kidnapping gone wrong.
No.
The UN called it a premeditated murder. The level of planning is, frankly, shocking. It shows this absolute confidence that they would get away with it.
Absolutely. I mean, when you look at the evidence, a specialized 15-man hit squad flying in on private jets, the fact that they brought a forensic doctor with them.
You don't bring a bone saw to a fist fight.
Exactly. And the detail that, for me, just proves a premeditation from the very beginning. The use of a body double.
Mustafa Almadani.
Right, to make it look like Khashoggi walked out alive. And there's this chilling line from the audio transcripts where he's complaining. He says, "It's scary to wear the clothes of a person who was killed 20 minutes ago."
That one line, it just tells you everything. It proves that what happened on October 2nd, 2018 was calculated down to the last cynical detail.
It speaks to this intent to not just kill him, but to completely erase the crime and control the story from the first second.
Believing that their diplomatic status was, a bulletproof shield.
So let's start by establishing the stakes here. To a lot of people, Jamal Khashoggi was just a journalist. But he was so much more than that, wasn't he? He was an insider.
He was. And that's the absolute key to understanding this. Khashoggi was not some outsider protesting from thousands of miles away. For decades, he was deeply embedded in the Saudi establishment.
Where did he come from? What was his background?
He actually graduated from Indiana State University's School of Journalism back in the early 80s. But crucially, he had these deep family and professional ties to the Saudi elite.
For example?
Well, he was a media consultant to Prince Turki Al Faisal,
The former head of intelligence and ambassador.
the very same. He was also the editor of a hugely influential newspaper, Al Watan. This put him right at the heart of the national conversation.
So when he started to critique the regime, he wasn't just speculating. He knew what he was talking about.
Precisely. His voice had so much credibility because he understood the inner workings, the specific policies, the personalities in the royal court. So when he shifted from being a regime loyalist to a critic, well, that knowledge became the most dangerous kind of dissent for an absolute monarchy.
And this wasn't a sudden break, right? The sources show the pressure on him started building years earlier.
The first really serious blow came around 2014, maybe 2015. He was placed under a ban.
A ban from what?
From writing articles, from even posting on Twitter. And the reason given was purely political. He stood for the Arab Spring. He'd expressed support for democratic movements in the region, which, Riyadh saw as an existential threat.
And the government made sure everyone knew about it.
They did. He told friends he found it very, very insulting. The Ministry of Information didn't just quietly tell him. They made a deliberate choice to publish the ban letter.
It was public shaming.
An attempt to just strip him of his professional standing.
But the real turning point, the point of no return, was the rise of Mohammed bin Salman, MBS.
Yes. When he consolidated power and was named Crown Prince in June 2017, Khashoggi knew the game had changed. He left the kingdom that very same month, realizing this new regime would tolerate zero dissent.
And his exile had immediate, severe consequences for his family.
It did. It shows the coercive power of the state, even when he was abroad. He was pressured officially into signing a divorce from his third wife, Dr. Ala Nassif, right after he left.
But the most agonizing part, the real human cost here, was what happened with his children.
Absolutely. He confided in a close friend, and the guilt was just eating him up. His two sons, both successful bankers, were effectively being held hostage inside Saudi Arabia because of him.
Their passports were confiscated.
That's right. They couldn't travel for their jobs. For these high-level banking positions, their careers were frozen. He felt this immense responsibility for, derailing their lives.
So he's carrying this huge personal burden, but he doesn't stop. In fact, he finds a platform that gives him this unprecedented global reach.
The Washington Post.
And for the Saudis, why was this the scariest thing?
Because the Washington Post is what U.S. lawmakers, what policy analysts, what decision-makers in the Capitol read every single morning.
Right.
MBS had spent hundreds of millions of dollars on this massive PR campaign to paint himself as a liberalizing reformer, Vision 2030.
And Khashoggi's columns were a direct threat to that image.
They systematically dismantled it. He used his insider knowledge to highlight the crackdowns, the arrests of women activists, the disastrous war in Yemen. He was undercutting the entire Western premise for supporting MBS.
He made it impossible to honestly maintain that reformer narrative.
Exactly. But there was this one confusing detail from that time. In August 2017, just after he left, he posted a tweet expressing loyalty to the Crown Prince.
Why would he do that?
It's complex. It suggests he was trying to, walk a tightrope, criticize the policy, but not the entire monarchy. And maybe, just maybe, he was trying to leave a tiny window open for reconciliation, or at least to protect his family. It was an impossible situation.
And the regime certainly tried to manage him. They tried to lure him back.
Oh, yes. Saud al-Qahtani, a key royal court advisor, who later becomes central to the plot. He contacted Khashoggi twice.
What did he offer?
He was assuring Jamal that MBS's trust in him was unshakable. They offered him management of a major Saudi-funded media network.
So they were trying to co-opt him, make him part of the propaganda machine.
It was a massive offer. Become a media baron, but be silent.
But he resisted, and his activism in exile just ramped up.
It really did. Right before he was killed, literally 2 days before, he was working with friends to set up a foundation for democracy in the Arab world.
And he was also getting involved in the digital side of things, right? The electronic bees?
Yes, this was a direct counterattack. The Saudi government has these huge organized troll farms, they call them electronic committees, to harass critics online.
So what did Khashoggi do?
He supported a Canadian-based activist, Omar Abdelaziz, with about $5,000 to help fund the electronic bees. It was a direct punchback in the online information war.
He also had another big project launching from Istanbul, something so sensitive, his assistants were afraid to even talk about it.
That tells you everything you need to know.
Yeah.
He was a man with a long-term plan. He was publishing, organizing, funding counter-propaganda. He was a visible global thorn in their side.
And it became clear to that action cell in Riyadh that threats and job offers had failed.
The only way to stop the work was to stop the man. His death was seen as the only way to get that eternal silencing.
So the decision was made. The sources talk about this small action cell in Riyadh finalizing the plan, and the lure had to be irresistible.
And it was the most normal human desire imaginable, the hope of a new life with the woman he loved.
The contrast is just devastating.
It is. In September 2018, he travels to Istanbul to finalize his marriage to a Turkish scholar, Hatice Tengiz. He was buying a flat. She said he looked 10 years younger.
And he told her this new life was necessary to continue our struggle for the new generation.
But he needed a piece of paper, a single status certificate from the Saudi consulate. That was the trap.
He and Hatice go to the consulate for the first time on September 28th.
Right. A Friday. He's inside for about 90 minutes. They tell him the documents aren't ready. They need more processing. Come back later.
And then he goes to London.
Yes. He flies to London that evening. And while he's there, he makes the fatal call back to the consulate.
And they tell him it's ready.
Come pick it up on Tuesday, October 2nd at 1:30 p.m. The clock was now ticking. The plan was in motion.
And the premeditation becomes so clear when you look at the surveillance from the day before the murder.
Monday, October 1st. Turkish surveillance cameras spot some very suspicious activity. A car from the Saudi consulate, driven by the military attaché, Ahmed Abdullah al-Muzani.
Where does it go?
It's seen passing through the gates of the Belgrade forest. It's this secluded, wooded area northwest of Istanbul.
Classic reconnaissance. They're scouting a disposal site before he even has his appointment.
Turkish intelligence was convinced that al-Muzani had just come back from Jeddah that day with a pre-established plan for how to get rid of the body. This completely debunks the later fistfight story.
And then the team itself arrives. The 15-man action cell. Not on a commercial flight.
Well, some of them did. The advance team, 3 members of NBS's Special Protection Unit came in on a commercial flight from Cairo, probably to check logistics.
Got the main group.
2 private jets from Riyadh. They landed an hour apart on a private runway to ensure maximum discretion.
And we have the flight details.
We do. The first plane, tail number HCSK-1, landed at 3:30 in the morning. On board was Maher al-Motrib, the head of the team, and 8 others.
They check into a couple of high-end hotels.
The Wyndham Grand and the Movenpick. And surveillance shows them leaving well before Khashoggi was due to arrive. They get to the consulate in a tinted car in position, ready and waiting.
And this team's makeup is the strongest circumstantial evidence linking this to the very top.
It's damning. The team included senior intelligence officers and, crucially, a forensics expert.
Dr. Salah al-Tubaiji, a forensic pathologist.
Which confirms the intent to dismember and destroy evidence from the start. And beyond that, sources confirm at least 7 of the 15 were extremely close to the Crown Prince's personal security inner circle. These were his guys.
So this was a targeted operation by the highest level of the regime's security.
A small, specialized, disposable diplomatic army sent to silence one man. If the goal was just to grab him, you don't bring a forensic doctor.
No, you don't.
This was an operation designed to make him disappear. Forever.
So let's move to the day itself, Tuesday, October 2nd. The timeline of those final hours is just so chilling because they were spent talking about wedding plans.
He and Hatice had breakfast. They were discussing guests, dates, just normal life stuff. That quiet hope makes what happened next so much more horrific. He confirmed his appointment for 1:14 p.m.
At 1:14 p.m., the cameras capture him. The last image of Jamal Khashoggi walking into the consulate. He hands his phone to Hatice.
Tells her to call an aide if he doesn't come out. And she waits.
What happened inside has been pieced together, mainly from the audio records obtained by Turkish intelligence.
Yes, which the UN later authenticated. He was taken immediately to the office of the Consul General, Mohammed al-Taibi. Mara al-Nutrib, the team leader, was there waiting for him with one of MBS's special guards.
And they start by questioning him about returning to Saudi Arabia. What did he say?
His answer was both hopeful and, I think, defiant. He said, "I want to return to the future."
And then they spring the trap, the prearranged lie.
They claim they have an Interpol order, and they have to take him back to Riyadh. He rejects it immediately, says there's no case against him, and then he says the critical thing. "I notified some people outside that were waiting for me."
He's talking about Hatice. He knows it's a kidnapping attempt, but he has no idea what's really planned.
The audio then records a short struggle, and then the dialogue between the killers begins.
And this is definitive proof of premeditation.
You hear team members asking, "Did he sleep?" which suggests a sedative was used. Then the grim instruction, "Keep push here, don't remove your hand, push it."
The Turkish prosecutor confirmed he was injected with a sedative and then strangled.
With a plastic bag. Quick, quiet, and it prevents blood splatter.
It's just terrifyingly efficient, and the forensic doctor, al-Tubaiji, was ready to go.
He began cutting up the body about 2 hours after death. The audio even captures them discussing logistics. They mention needing plastic bags, cutting the body into pieces because, in their own words, the body is heavy.
And while this unspeakable act is happening, the technical side of the cover-up is also underway.
Exactly. You can hear the voice of an information expert on the staircase. His job was to download the data from the surveillance cameras, the very images that showed Khashoggi entering, and then reset them completely.
Which provides the digital alibi for the physical deception.
Precisely. It supports the Consul General's later lie that the cameras just didn't record.
Which brings us to that physical deception. The body double, one of the most brazen parts of this whole thing.
The ultimate display of cynical confidence. They get this guy, Mustafa al-Madani, to wear Khashoggi's clothes. And you can hear his distress on the audio. He complains, "It's scary to wear the clothes of a person who was killed 20 minutes ago."
He's literally wearing the evidence, hoping his walk out the door creates the cover story.
And the plan was almost perfect, except for one small detail.
The shoes?
Khashoggi's shoes didn't fit him. So they let him keep his own sneakers on, figuring nobody would notice.
Wow.
He was then instructed to walk along 4 specific streets, posing for CCTV cameras, before taking a taxi to the Sultan Ahmed area to dump the clothes. The deception was complete.
And all this time, outside, Hatice is waiting. Her anxiety must have been through the roof.
By 4 p.m., nearly 3 hours after he went in, she goes to the door. An officer just dismisses her. There was no one inside. Everyone had left.
She calls the consulate.
Dismissed again. And this is when she triggers the Turkish intelligence response. She knew she had to contact people with real power.
So she reaches out to her network.
Journalist friends, and crucially, the Chief of General Intelligence, Hakan Fidan. Her message and who was missing meant an immediate response. Within 3.5 hours, Turkish intelligence had concluded he'd vanished inside the consulate. The geopolitical clock had started.
The moment Turkish intelligence confirmed Khashoggi was gone, Saudi Arabia just went into total denial mode.
A total wall of denial. For those first 5 days, speculation was just chaotic. Was it a kidnapping? Was he smuggled out? No one knew.
And the Saudis just kept pushing one story.
Their first official lie came on October 3rd, the day after. The consulate claimed he'd left the building, and they were working with Turkey to figure out what happened after exiting.
That was the core lie, built around the body double.
And the Crown Prince himself backed it up. MBS gave statements saying, "My understanding is he went in and left a few minutes, maybe an hour later. He is not inside." He used his personal authority to just shut it down.
They even did that bizarre PR stunt with the consul general.
Right. On October 6th, Mohammed al-Taibi invites Reuters reporters in for a tour. See? He's not here. But when they asked to see the surveillance tapes, that would prove he left.
He says the cameras didn't save the images.
A claim that was immediately labeled impossible to believe for a wealthy Saudi consulate. Not credible.
And this wasn't just a few statements. This was a full-scale information war.
Oh, it was a massive propaganda push. The official Saudi press agency published 148 statements about his disappearance in 1 month.
148.
89 news items, 19 statements from royals and ministers, all designed to push the story that he left and that this was all a Turkish fabrication.
So against this wall of denial, Turkey deploys its own weapon, the strategic leak.
Their response was so calibrated, they played the long game. They didn't directly accuse MBS at first, maybe to try and separate him from his father, King Salman, or just to maximize the geopolitical leverage.
And their timing was impeccable.
The sources say leaks were introduced with intensity and ferocity whenever a weak Saudi story or an empty U.S. statement came out. It was a masterclass in using information as a weapon.
So let's talk about the evidence they started leaking. They started with the cars.
They did. They meticulously analyzed the movements of 26 consulate vehicles. And crucially, CCTV showed 2 Mercedes Vitos driving from the consulate to the consul's house about an hour and 50 minutes after Khashoggi went inside.
And they identified one specific vehicle.
License plate 34CC 1865. They believed that was the vehicle that transported the dismembered body.
And they tracked the cleanup attempt, too.
The Vios were parked in the house garage for 3 days. Then they were taken to a nearby car wash where the driver was told to clean them very carefully. It suggests a professional attempt to remove any biological evidence.
But the truly explosive leaks weren't about the cars. They were about the people.
That was the point of no return. On October 10th, just 8 days in, Turkish media broadcast the images, the footage, and the full names of the entire 15-man assassination squad.
And that's when everyone realized these weren't just random thugs.
Exactly. The IDs showed these were high-level security members from the Crown Prince's own personal detail. That, combined with reporting from the New York Times that the orders came from the very top, just completely annihilated the Saudi denial strategy. It was dead in the water.
Once those names were public, an international reaction was inevitable. But the first response from the U.S. under President Trump was, let's say, focused on damage control.
The administration's priority was clear: protect MBS. The strategic ties, the Iran policy, the massive arms deals, they wanted to preserve that relationship.
So on October 8th, Trump makes his first statement.
He says the king firmly denied any knowledge of it, and then he introduces the magic phrase, "Maybe these could have been rogue killers, who knows?"
That rogue killers line became the official story for weeks, and it came from the U.S. first.
It was a political gift to the Saudis. It gave them an exit ramp, a way to say, this was a terrible mistake, but it wasn't sanctioned by the state.
But as the Turkish leaks kept coming, that position just became harder and harder to hold.
Especially in the U.S. Congress. The pressure was building, so Trump was forced to escalate his public rhetoric, even while trying to protect MBS behind the scenes.
He goes on 60 Minutes.
11 days after the disappearance, yeah. He calls it terrible and disgusting if it's true, promises severe punishment. But even then, he's careful to say the Crown Prince denies it. He's trying to walk this impossible line.
And then he sends Secretary of State Pompeo to Riyadh and Ankara.
And the big question hanging over that trip was he going to investigate, or was he going to help the Saudis fabricate a story they could use now that the rogue angle was failing.
It looked more like emergency political coordination than an investigation.
It certainly did. Meanwhile, global pressure is just building and building.
Britain, France, and Germany issue a joint statement demanding a credible investigation.
And the money starts to talk. The Saudi stock index falls by 7% on October 14th. That gets their attention. It led to this very defensive Saudi statement, vowing to retaliate with even greater measures if any action was taken against them.
And back in the U.S., Congress was not letting this go.
No. You had bipartisan calls for accountability, denouncing Trump's defense of MBS. The political consensus was that this was just too egregious to ignore.
So all this pressure finally breaks the wall of denial.
King Salman contacts Erdogan and Trump and agrees to a joint Saudi-Turkish working group.
Which was largely seen as a delaying tactic.
It was. On October 15th, officials finally enter the consulate. The Turkish forensic team works for 9 hours overnight, taking soil samples, even a metal door from the garden.
And right in the middle of this, the consul general, al-Taibi, gets out of town.
He's recalled to Saudi Arabia on October 16th, escaping any potential questioning or arrest by the Turkish authorities.
But the sources say that even after this joint investigation started, the Saudis were still actively destroying evidence.
That's right. We have records of Saudi security staff, including a chemical expert and a toxicologist, moving between the consulate and the consul's house from the 12th to the 17th. The belief is they were there to professionally clean the crime scenes.
Finally, on October 20th, after 3 weeks of lies, they make their first admission.
They admit he's dead. They announce the arrest of 18 Saudis, but they immediately substitute one lie for another.
This is the fistfight story.
Exactly. The new official narrative is that it was a quarrel that went wrong. It allows them to admit the death, but deny the premeditation and the high-level command.
And then they engage in that really cynical photo op with Khashoggi's son.
King Salman and MBS call his son Salah to offer condolences. Then they summon him to Riyadh for a staged photo op, trying to project this image of compassion and control.
Despite that admission, Turkey just kept the pressure on. They weren't buying the fistfight story.
Now, for a second, the Saudi Attorney General, Saad al-Majab, is forced to fly to Turkey on October 29th.
But the meetings go nowhere.
They fall apart completely. The Turkish prosecutor's office declares the talks a failure, saying they reached no tangible results. The Saudis refused to say where the body was or who gave the order.
So after that breakdown, the Turkish prosecutor issues a final definitive conclusion.
Yes. They formally state that Khashoggi was strangled to death as part of a premeditated plan immediately after entering the consulate, and that his body was then cut up and disposed of. That official statement solidified the record of a state-sponsored murder.
And it set the stage for the final judgments from the world's top intelligence agencies.
Absolutely. In late 2018, the CIA finished its investigation, and its conclusion was unambiguous.
That the Crown Prince, Mohammed bin Salman, ordered the murder.
Yes. Based on multiple intelligence streams intercepts, for the CIA to formally attribute a crime to the de facto ruler of an allied nation was an extraordinary step.
And then came the UN investigation in 2019, led by Agnes Callamard.
Her report was so important because it provided the legal framework. She classified it as an extrajudicial execution for which the state of Saudi Arabia was responsible under international law.
And she confirmed the audio recordings.
She did. And her conclusion was that there was credible evidence calling for further investigation into high-level officials. And she specifically named Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman.
What did she recommend?
She called for targeted sanctions against everyone involved, including MBS, and a review of diplomatic immunity so consulates couldn't be used as murder sites. Her message was that this kind of brazen impunity is a threat to global security.
And yet, despite all of this, the timeline, the names, the audio, there is one tragic mystery that remains.
The body has never been found, and that denies his loved ones any kind of closure. The fact that they made the body vanish speaks to the professionalism of that part of the plan.
Let's quickly go through the main theories. One involves the private jets.
Right. That the dismembered body was vacuum sealed and flown out in diplomatic luggage, which bypasses most security checks.
Another theory goes back to that reconnaissance mission in the Belgrade forest.
That it was a local disposal. Turkish police searched nearby palaces, thinking he might have been buried on the grounds. Or that the body was scattered in the forest where the military attaché was first spotted.
But the darkest and perhaps most plausible theory involves acid.
This is the one that seems most likely. given that a chemical expert and a toxicologist were brought in to clean the consul's house. The theory is the body was dissolved in acid and poured down the drain. It's incredibly difficult to trace and would explain why no remains have ever been found.
And we should mention the rumor about his Apple Watch, that it somehow recorded evidence from inside.
Right. While the technical specifics are debated, it just shows his desperate desire for an infallible witness to such a terrible crime.
But regardless of how they disposed of the body, the facts are clear. This was a deliberate, planned, and ruthlessly executed state murder.
And its legacy, I think, is the incredible power of international media, fueled by those strategic intelligence leaks, to expose a crime and demand accountability from even the most powerful actors.
That brings us to the end of our deep dive. From Khashoggi's courageous advocacy and the profound guilt he carried, to the precision of that assassination team, the body double, and the political fallout that just rippled across the globe.
We've chronicled a state's attempt at a perfect crime, followed by this massive 3-week denial that was just systematically taken apart, piece by piece, by the phased release of evidence.
And we saw the U.S. government try to hand them an exit ramp with the road element story.
Which ultimately failed because of the intense pressure from Congress and from, global outrage.
What's so striking is how meticulously planned the execution was, and yet how sloppy and easily exposed the political cover-up ended up being.
It really was. Which brings us to a final thought for you, our listener, to consider. We have the timeline, we have the evidence, we have the names, we even have audio quotes from the crime itself, confirmed by the UN and the CIA. Yet real accountability remains selective and, frankly, incomplete.
So considering the sheer volume of detailed evidence that Turkish intelligence strategically controlled and released, turning surveillance footage and private jet manifests into geopolitical weapons, what does this whole event tell you about the role of information control and the strategic leaking of that information as maybe the primary tool of geopolitical power today?